What's going on, guys? Captain Nostalgia here for Victims and Villains, the only show that dares to talk nerd, talk hope, and speak nothing else. And I am sitting here right now with Mr. Edward Drake. He is the writer and the director on the brand new movie Broil. And if you guys have read my review for this film, it is one of the best films in the horror genre to come out this year. I absolutely adore this film. And I think one of the things that we were talking about this just before I started hitting record is you had mentioned about the theme of family and how it resurrects with people. What was it in particular about the subject of family that made you want to really kind of like anchor the narrative of Broil into that subject matter?
Yeah, cheers, Josh. Thank you for that hell of an introduction. I appreciate it. Family is just this weird universal concept that when you look at, not to get a little highfalutin right off the bat, when you look at family from point of view of our species, it's just this strange thing of like genealogy bringing us together and just like pushing us apart. And I truly believe that when you get down to it, there is something that's fundamentally fascinating about the ways in which families can like support each other and hurt each other in so many different ways that you would never even dare inflict a kind of a pain on a stranger. And I really wanted it, like, I love what Ari Aster was able to do with Hereditary, but I really wanted to see something that went more inwards and was more focusing on the ways the families are hitting each other and like different family members are positioning each other against these little factions. Because, you know, as a family grows, like, you know, they separate, you know, the family tree just goes in different directions. These strange rivalries come together, and I really wanted to tap into that. And you know, I love Rosemary's Baby. I love, you know, just films that can get to the heart of what it means to you know, it helps you understand your place in the world around you. I think that's ultimately what we're trying to go for, trying to find a bit of truth.
Absolutely. And that is a kind of the almost the linchpin for Chance in this movie, who is
Yep.
the oldest granddaughter. Like, she's trying to like basically find out, and we want to get to her in just a few minutes. But it's funny that you mentioned Ari Aster's Hereditary, which I think is just this like new wave of horror that's starting to creep in, where it's kind of that groundedness. In my review, I actually compared this film to Ready or Not,
Very cool.
which
Yep.
has a lot of that like mysterious same kind of
Mm-hmm.
ambiguousness nature to it.
Yep.
And I I guess that was kind of one of the things that I like had this like dying question for the Sinclair family. It is like this like riddle wrapped in an enigma the entirety of the movie. And even when the
Mm-hmm.
credits start rolling, you're not even really too sure what's what or who they are. How
Mm-hmm.
important was that ambiguous nature coming into them as
Yeah.
a antagonist?
No, I appreciate that you're able to see that, because I'm really grateful that that's kind of coming through, that there's this ambiguity. Now I can't pronounce it. You know what I mean? Around what the family actually is, and whether are they demon, vampire, cannibal, like what are they? And I challenge you to define any family on earth by one title. And that is entirely, as you were saying, it's the linchpin of the way that Chance is trying to reckon with her place in this family, but also realize what secrets are being kept from her and how they define her, you know, in the hierarchy of, you know, she's the eldest grandchild, which gives her a position in the eyes of the grandfather. But then how does that pertain to what the grandfather's expectations are versus what the mother's expectations are and what she wants for her child? And yeah, and I just, so there was just a really interesting way to just look at the ways we keep secrets from each other and the ways that conflict can come about when families go to war with one another.
And it's really interesting the visual character design that comes along with the St. Clairs kind of as you get deeper into that, and that ambiguous nature. I'm just going to say that ambiguous.
Yeah,
Uh
there you go.
that nature is kind of really shown through because there's a scene where one of the characters is like, St. Clair, like, are they like monsters, vampires, demons? Like, what
Mhm.
are they? And I think, what was the process like, or how long, like, what was your process in kind of like creating the visual aspects of that, uh, you know, ambiguous idea of the mystery of them to actually like the visual?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think that the one thing that I'm hearing from a lot of people that are seeing it are, what's the true form of the Sinclair? It's like, is it what you see with May in the corridor, or is it what you see with August Sinclair at the end? I think the interesting thing there was that, they both, their demons manifest in their own different ways. I love Caravaggio as a painter, and I think there's just some really interesting parallels between who Caravaggio is as a painter versus who he was in his real life, because he was a bit of a monster. He was an actual certified murderer and a bit of a crazy fucking dude. But he left the world with these incredible gifts, and he redefined what it was to, like, bring to life these moments that he was able to paint. But it's that battle of, like, the monster versus the damage that they do to the world versus what they give back, and how much can they justify within the family hierarchy as well. Yeah. And I think visually as well, it all comes back to this idea of you have these classical trappings of wealth that we wanted, as the film goes on, these gold little pieces that they have around them. It was a way to highlight the fact that, if they're vampires, they don't keep silver in their presence. We also wanted the gold to get a little bit sickly, so it becomes a little stale as we go on, and the color grade kind of like moves and shifts, and and eventually you get this purple haze that comes through, that finale out in, the execution scene.
Yeah.
So I hope that
I
helps. Yeah.
I had to double take during the aforementioned August St. Clair kind of quote unquote like final form, final boss kind of scene, because I was like, what just happened? And then like I rewound it and I was like, that's what I thought I just saw, because it's very much a blink and you miss it kind of moment.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, dude. The movie is like, I don't like that term elevated horror. I think that there is just so much you can do within the horror world. Like, half of John Carpenter's movies have to be considered horror movies, but you can't compare them to Scream, or you can't compare them to, I think you get what I mean. But
Yeah.
what we wanted to do is use the expectations and a play on a lot of the cliches that you might have seen before, and not necessarily subvert them, but just take them deeper. And, like, what's the truth behind, vampires? Like, if they are these immortal beings that have walked the earth, what does that actually look like in a family structure? Like, how would they interact with each other? Would they have rivalries? I just think, I love these characters and I love this family, because I think what's really connecting with me and what's giving me, what I'm so grateful for, which is a sense of fulfillment, that people really are seeing a lot of their own trials and tribulations that they're having with aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, that sort of thing, reflected, and in these characters, and it's coming back and being like, oh, okay, so that's the point of view where they're coming from, and it's just being able to show these different changing perspectives. And we haven't even talked about the chef, the outsider.
No. So
Yeah.
so I want to get to him in just a few minutes, because
Yep.
the chef was kind of what initially brought me into want to cover this movie. So before we get to the chef, I think kind of sticking on the visual nature of this film is structured in a very unique way, to where it is divided up into essentially 4 different parts. And within those parts, it's interesting because you even have these like fourth wall breaking. There's one part in particular where Chance is in the closet, and it says something to like the joke of like she's not scared, and then it's like a fourth wall, but she really is. But it's done in kind of this like old timey silent movie era.
Yep.
How did you kind of come up with some of the ideas to kind of divide the film into those subsections, and then the idea for adding in the kind of that silent film fourth wall break?
Yeah, I just love films that do play with the idea of like understanding where the act breaks are and which chapter is where, and how you can just see these almost like mini movies playing out within a greater whole of another film. When it comes to that little chance cheekiness there, I actually baked that into the script, and then everyone during filming was like, "That's never going to make the final film," and I was like, "You want to bet? You daring me right now? Let's do it. Let's get there." But it's fun because when you watch it with an audience, it always just gets a laugh because it's coming at, it's a kind of humor that you don't usually see in something that is, visually it's a lot more dour. And like, I come from commercials and music videos, and I've done way too many dance music videos for any one person to ever do in their lifetime. And you get that frenetic nature where it's like great shot, and you're editing, you're dropping on the beat, that sort of thing. It all means nothing. Whereas what I wanted to do here was just show you the characters and sit with them. And so my cinematographer, Y, and I, we had this rule where we just, if we're going to, one great frame, and if we can hold, when you have great actors like this, you can just hold on them. And then that way, when the humor hits, it's not that the characters are winking at the camera, but there is a bit of a smirk there. And at the end of the day, I wanted it to be a fun experience. I didn't want it to be like, I didn't want it to be a chore of a film to watch. And I think we all kind of know that. There are some films where you're told, like, this is high art, you must appreciate this. Can you not, you have to wear this with a serious face. I wanted this to be something where you could just open yourself up and hopefully see a bit of yourself reflected back.
From someone that's watched this movie, I know that there is just a fun nature about this movie, and I love that so much. Is that it's lighthearted enough to where you can laugh at moments, but it's intense enough to where it'll put you on the edge of your seat. And I think August does a great job of it, and Timothy V. Murphy, I wanted to make sure I got that name right, does a incredible performance. He's so sinister throughout the course of this, and when he kind of gets into the third act, I mean, it's like all bets are off with him. And I loved that particular aspect about him, and just kind of his like twisted vision of like being the savior of the St. Clairs.
Yeah, dude, I think every bad guy has to see themselves as a good guy of their own narrative. And he truly believes that what he's doing isn't just saving his family, but also saving the world. And it's this like Aryan like perspective that is so outdated, but I think in a weird way, it's always going to be perpetuated by older generations, where there always has to be this struggle between the old, like the young bull, old bull change, like, and that's how we can affect change, like, as a family progresses, as history progresses. But yeah, he definitely sees himself as the good guy of his story. And I quite like that we were able to I had quite a fair bit of creative freedom when it came to playing with that ambiguity. There we go.
There you go.
The grey in the goodness, like, because what Avery's doing, she decides to play by the Sinclair rules once, and it costs her, spoiler, it costs her something very dear to her. It's the same with, the chef, with June, with December, it's
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the chef, or Mr. Two Black Coffees, as he's known throughout the course of this film. This is Jonathan Lipnicki, and I'm curious how this relationship kind of began, because Most
Yeah.
people know him as, if you grew up in the 90s, you know Jonathan Lipnicki as the son of Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire. You know him as Stuart Little, Little Vampires. I mean, he had a career like just really solid, and then he kind of disappeared. And so
Hmm.
when I got the press email about this movie, I double taked because Jonathan Lipnicki was just a name I hadn't heard it forever. And he takes a while to kind of get used to, but like once it just basically comes down to like him and Murphy are
Hmm.
the kind of the relationship of the film.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're maybe probably grew up around the, understanding Lipnicki's career. Like what was it
Yeah.
particular about him that attracted you to cast him as the chef in this movie?
He was available and he wanted to do it. No, well, I mean that's the truth. He so it's no secret we were chatting with another actor who's actually a really good buddy of mine. His name's Cody Kersley. I'm gonna call him out. But I love Cody. Great dude. But he just got cast. So he booked Broil. So he was the chef. And we were like probably a month away from filming when he got a call from Netflix offering him like, like a series regular on this show called Daybreak. And I was like, dude, this is such an opportunity for you, brother. Go for it. Run with the horses. Go for it. And he's like, thank you. And like, we'll work together in the future. There's no doubt about that. But so Cody's out, and now I need someone else. And then I'm going through and I'm looking at who's good, who's interesting. And then I was chatting with an agent, and I had her IMDb Pro up, and I was looking through a roster of clients. And I actually threw it out as a joke. I was like, who would be funny as a killer chef that's on the spectrum? Jonathan Lipnicki. And then she was like, see what he wants to do. And she was like, it's probably not going to happen, but we'll see if it takes. And then this was 8 o'clock at night, and I got an email at 1 a.m. being like, yeah, so Johnny's pretty obsessed. I don't know what it is. It's kind of weird, but he really wants to do this movie. So he's coming to Canada next week. And I was like, oh, great, fantastic. And then we had a few phone calls and settled on the direction for the character, which I really wanted to find an interesting way into what is classically a cool movie serial killer, if that makes sense. It's something that you've seen a million times before. But I think the truth of a character like that is that they're on the spectrum. And we wanted to take it to that place where I think that if you see something like Ryan Gosling in Drive, he is very subtly playing on the spectrum. We just wanted to take that a little bit further, and I'm really proud of what Jonathan was able to do and do justice to the role, and to people that are living on the spectrum every single day. And I hope that they can see a bit of themselves reflected in it.
Jonathan 100%. I mean, just absolutely delivers. He is one of the most entertaining and impactful performances that this movie has.
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting introductions to is between him and Chance at the end of the first act.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how important was it to kind of have that humor, but then kind of like bring the narrative and bend it around to his character and kind of like how he got there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So funnily enough, so the financier wanted the chef to be the main character. And so what happened is the film that you see now is essentially the very first draft of the script. But then the financier said, I want the chef to be the first thing that you see and the last thing you see. And it's got to be the story of the chef and how he interacts with his family. So I was like, great. So what I did is I took Jonathan Lipnicki, or the chef introduction, all that, and I just took those pages and I put them at the front of the script, and then I handed it over and was like, there you go. Because I knew that in the edit we could just take them and put them back over there. And that's because you need to get into that family dynamic before you introduce the outsider. And, you know, it takes a village, but to raise a child, but it also takes an outsider to understand what is fundamentally wrong with that village if something is wrong. And you just couldn't break that narrative any other way. So when he first meets Chance, I feel like it comes as this really nice little, like, wait, who the fuck's this guy in the kitchen sort of moment. Like, how did this all happen? But yeah, Johnny killed it. He's such a great dude. We're buddies. I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks, and I'm so proud that he went so deep on this one. And same with Avery Conrad, actually. She has honestly stolen the thunder from everyone in the room when she was acting, and it was quite funny because Timothy V. Murphy is he's old school Shakespeare, Wrath of God. Like, he knows his lines, shows up. He's a consummate professional. Everyone sits up a little bit straighter when he enters the room, and there's a silence, and you just get this beautiful synergy and this hum that kicks in. And then he does his first scene with Avery, and it's just like, who the fuck is this? Like, I was supposed to be the best actor in this movie. He actually comes up and he says that, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's Avery. And just like, where'd you find her? I'm like, she submitted a self-tape. You just cast her off a self-tape. I'm like, yeah, because that's Chance. And she had the perfect level of cheekiness. She had the perfect level of just like, down to have fun with it. But yeah, really good people.
Yeah, Avery definitely does deliver again, adequate performances. It really challenges Jonathan and Timothy alike.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And this movie has so much of, like, just even the actors that you only see for like 8 to 10 minutes has just memorable moments. And I think I don't want to kind of get into and spoil some of the stuff, but I love the way that you kind of had like backstories for some of the chef and like his boss, so to say. I feel like, for lack of a better word, like, I really enjoyed that aspect. I liked the subplot of Chance's parents kind of wanting to leave the St. Clair kind of family tree, and just again trying to like be as like spoiler free as possible.
I know it's tricky, yeah. Yeah, and you're dancing around it really nicely. I'm just like, I'm interested to see how it keeps going, but yeah.
But I mean, like, when you're this, like, it's like mini like subplots like this that really help to flesh out the world and very subtly build the world building. And how many of these stories were initially in your head at the beginning of this, and then kind of how many of them edited the further you kind of started to develop this world?
So I jokingly say this is a true story, just I added the vampires. But again, there's more truth to that than anything else. I think everyone can relate to sections of family that try to break off from the main branch. Like, everyone has those cousins that just, you suddenly don't speak to them as much anymore, and suddenly they're not coming over on weekends, and then it's been a year since you've seen them, and then two. But everyone had a backstory. I mean, the hardest part of the edit was editing for time, because we had this stupid sales agent who made us cut 15 minutes out of the film because he wanted a nice 90-minute movie, which was a real shame, because we lost a lot of the stuff to do with the chef and Freddie and how they got connected. And we had this really cheeky, like really cool one-er, which it was like Goodfellas, but with the Goodfellas where it comes in and he goes through the back of the restaurant and that sort of stuff. And we did that, but we added like this fight into it, and the feeling on set when we nailed that was just like elation. It was just so that was a good moment, but we had to cut it for time. But I think there's truth to just every character and everything. You should always try and find their motivation for being in the room at that time. They can't just be the waiter that approaches with the water, because there is no waiter on earth that is their goal in life, is to just serve you a glass of water. There has to be something more to it, and hopefully that gives it that texture that I think is lacking from, honestly, some other stuff that's out there. But yeah, I'm so grateful that you kind of clued into that.
It makes me sad knowing that there's like a director's cut out there that I may never get to see of this movie, because I think that it is 90 minutes, but there's so much that happens in it and you're entertained the entire time that it doesn't ever feel like the movie lags or drags at all. It never like feels like it's too rushed. Like, it feels satisfying by the time that you get to the kind of the end frames before the credits, and then the kind of the mystery with Chance and the other realm, as I'll call it, that you meet her at the beginning, and kind of like how that mystery is like a subplot unto itself, and it's like this story being told to the audience. It really grips you in. And I don't know, man, I would say like you could probably like release that as like a one-off short film prequel to Broil.
Oh, absolutely, dude. And I mean, they made us cut the after credit scene, which was the craziest, where we had this like bananas moment where who was it? January, February, April, May, June, July. There was one of the other family members who was, you low key, it's implied that she was excommunicated from the family. She actually returns in the after the credits and says, "Come on, we're going to New Orleans. The rest of the family wants to meet you," to Chance after she's just woken up. And then they get in the Mustang and they drive off, heading for New Orleans. And so it's like Chance's story. You don't know where it's going, but at least she's leaving the house and she's going on. She's going to be free. Sequels, dude. Netflix miniseries. Come on. Let's find that.
I'm all about this, man. I love the St. Clairs. They're such a entertaining family to see. And I would even ask, like, with that, is there any plans for a sequel with this film?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll say that, yeah, it was kind of crazy. So, there's some footage where you see it, that they're in the snow and they're walking through the snow and you see the hut, like, so, you see the barista with the heart in her hand. That was a much, much longer sequence, which was pretty awesome. Like, I hate that we had to cut that, but we shot that on the very final day. And as we're driving up, we get a call from one of the distributors being like, literally negotiating with us for the sequel to the movie. And so it's just when we all have time to get together to go and make the next one. But I love that family. I love how twisted it is. And the next one would be the family. If Broil is about the Sinclairs breaking apart, the sequel is about them coming together to support one errant member who is being a bit of a wild child with her new powers. Yeah.
I don't know if that's an exclusive for us or not, but
that
sounds
yes,
awesome.
Yeah. It actually came about because I was speaking with Tim and I pitched him this idea in a little coffee shop in Santa Monica, and he was like, "Edward, I fucking love it, but you got to do me a favor." I'm like, "Anything, Tim? What do you want?" He's like, "I want a scene with lots of guns. I think August Sinclair with guns would be fantastic." And I was like, "Done. There you go." So we've got Tim, we've got Johnny, Avery's down to come back. I mean, Annette Riley, Nels Lenison. It's dude, I had so much fun with that movie. I've done 2 films since then. I want to go back and hang out with those guys because it was just like by the end of it, we're all still friends. Like, actually, fun story. 2 people met on our film. One's one of the main actors, and one was in the wardrobe department. And they're about to have their, they got together and they're about to have a kid, but they met on Broil.
Nice.
And I love that sort of, like, that fills my heart, where it's like, you hear so many, stories about the film industry just being this terrible place and all that sort of thing, but it doesn't have to be. If you just create like a loving, happy set, then you get these really special moments out of it. But yeah, I'm so glad you liked it, dude.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that we are on the cusps of people like myself being able to hold this in their hands everywhere. Broil hits
Yep.
physical and digital media alike, all the major outlets. Check this out. Uh, October
October
13th.
13th. That's
So
it.
it's
October
it's
13th.
so close to being a reality.
Hmm.
Highly recommend this. This is one of the best horror films of the year.
Yeah, I should also say, don't fucking stream the thing. Sorry, can I swear? I think I
Yeah,
already
go
have.
for it.
But don't stream the thing, because back in July, some nitwit leaked the film. They leaked a rough cut. So if you go onto a torrent website, this is just a disclaimer for all those pirates out there. But someone leaked the movie, but they leaked an earlier cut that didn't have a sound mix on it. So everyone's looking at the movie. All the reviews that you've seen that are published probably like a week before we're speaking today are based on a leaked rough cut. And I think that's one of the funniest things, because I can turn around to every single one of those reviewers and be like, oh, where'd you get that copy? Oh, that's interesting. That's funny. So, yeah. But thank you so much, man, for your support. Yeah, here's to Broil too.
Man, bring it on.
Yeah, love it. All right. Thanks, brother. I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Have a good one, man.
You too. Have a good night. Cheers.